I forgot my sign! Crap! Hey everybody, welcome to the Edge's Facebook page's #1 show at this particular time. 3 to 5 things we did not have time to talk about today. It's not sign language, those are just vague symbols I made with my hand. I would like to thank this week's sponsor, Train Like Heroes, 400 Monarch Avenue in Ajax. Listen to this hardcore nonsensory. Yesterday, I went there because this is the thing. I deal with a lot of anxiety issues. I'm a very anxious, tense individual all the time. And when I go to the gym, I find like it turns the volume down. It just like makes me calm for a while after, get the rush of endorphins. And I go in, and Nikki, one of the trainers who's got a broken leg, is sitting there on a wheelie office chair with her foot up on one of the jumping boxes with a pillow under it, literally just yelling at me from around the gym to do various exercises. She's more hardcore in an office chair with her foot on a pillow than I am just giving her. And then she gets onto the rings and starts doing chin-ups with her leg in a goddamn cast. It was insane. Insane. Train Like Heroes. Great place. Everyone's going to get back into the fall routine kind of thing. You know, people do that. They like all of a sudden, oh, it's time to get back into shape. You know, it's the fall. Let's go. Let's go. It's a good time. Listen, we're going to have to talk about Charlottesville. We're going to have to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it, but I have to talk about it. It's a huge thing. Because I got like a personal story about it. Not really like I was there, personal story, but just like how it affected my weekend. So, Friday night, a bunch of guys in golf shirts and Aryan haircuts go to Walmart during the afternoon, and they get a whole bunch of tiki torches, like 2 for $25 or something, which, by the way, is like a Polynesian invention made in China. And they come to walk around with their tiki torches to talk about how important it is being white and how they will not be forgotten. Why? Because they're trying to tear down a Robert E. Lee statue, and these privileged rich guys that probably don't even have student debt because their parents are paying for all their education are very upset by this. It's part of our heritage. Yeah, the shitty part of your heritage. You don't see Germans going around trying to like protest the removal of a Hitler statue. You know why? Because they got rid of all the Hitler statues. That's why. There's none left. That's not a good part of your history. That's not what you should be trying to remember. He was a great Southern gentleman, which is basically a way of saying he was a polite racist. He drank tea with the proper hand positioning and was still horribly racist and went to war to ensure that there would still be slavery in that country. Awful, awful thing to be protesting about, you mutts. So I see all the photographs and they look just like this. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, this is the funniest thing ever. They look like they're part of some satanic barbecue support group. That's what they look like. Or I'm like, is this like a Halloween themed like commercial for like a clear out sale on like backyard products? Because that's also what it looks like. I'm just like, the amount of comedy that I have rolling through my head about how ridiculous this whole thing is unbelievable. Go to bed Friday, wake up Saturday morning. We have like a big family barbecue. One of my family friends come over. They bring their kids. All the kids are playing in the backyard. We're all having a good time in the backyard, making jokes, talking about Game of Thrones theories. And one of my friends, my buddy Deal, my producer on my podcast, Issue Zero Pod, at Issue Zero Pod on the Twitters, by the way. She messaged me being like, you know what? I'm watching what's going on in the news, and I'm getting like super emotional about it. I had to turn the news off. And I'm like shooting back with jokes with her about like all the ridiculousness and comedy involved with the overnight protest on Friday with the guys in the tiki torches. Because, dude, like, look at that. They look like they're guys that are outraged over a badminton score. Like, it's just the most silly thing ever. Imagine if in Frankenstein, when the villagers showed up to kill Frankenstein, they're carrying tiki torches. Like, the best thing about this protest is there's no mosquitoes around because of all the citronella that's being burned. Like, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. So I'm making all these jokes because I wasn't paying attention to the news on Saturday when it got absolutely batshit with all like the KKK and the Nazis showing up in force, flying the rebel flags, being idiots. Then the counter protesters show up. You got Black Lives Matter, you got Antifa. And then the vast majority of the people there are just like, we're not racist white people and we hate the fact that you're making us all look bad. We hate it so much. It's terrible. It's just a horrible thing. And then to make things worse, brawls start breaking out like crazy. I watched some video about this black dude getting the shit beat out of him by like 3 dudes that are wearing, like, one of them is dressed up in his full KKK regalia. And they're beating this guy with like 2x4s. It's on video. There's fights. There's things happening constantly. And 3 people get arrested total. 3 people. It's absolutely mind-blowing. You want to know why there's constantly discussions about race relations in the U.S.? Because when you look at what was happening in Baltimore, they arrested dozens of people, hundreds of people. This happens, and they arrest 3 people. 3 people. One of those people drove a car through a crowd. I had no idea any of this stuff had happened. No idea at all. This all happened on Saturday afternoon. This Dick Smack drives a car through a crowd of people, killing one lady. Heather Heyer is her name, 32-year-old paralegal from the United States, and she wrote, the last thing that she wrote on her Facebook page was, "If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention." Oh, dude, I'm a lot more outraged today, let me tell you. This guy allegedly, I should emphasize, allegedly drove his car through a crowd of people, putting 7 people in critical condition, injuring 30 plus others, and allegedly murdering Heather Heyer, a 32-year-old woman. Now, I've done some reading about this guy. His name's James Alex Fields. You can identify him by his exceedingly small face to head size ratio. You know how, like, the Nazis were all into, like, genoming and, like, measuring, like, facial attributes to determine the perfect Aryan race and all that? Like, do you think that, like, this guy would pass one of their Nazi tests? Like, is a small face-to-head ratio, like, a proper Aryan thing? Because he looks sort of like an anthropomorphized berry of some sort. I don't know which berry. Probably not a gooseberry, because they're amazing. Not just as a garnish. They really taste fantastic. He just looks like an absolute buffoon. This guy was actually on the watchdog list from his local police department because starting in grade 9, he'd begun obsessing about the Nazis and the Aryan nation and Hitler. He was also diagnosed with schizophrenia and was on antipsychotic drugs. But of course, since it's the United States and they have their amazing privatized healthcare system, he probably couldn't afford the antipsychotic drugs that he was supposed to be on that led to him being absolutely batshit insane and terribly, terribly, terribly racist. Now, some things that have happened since then. This always drives me crazy. Like, this is one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts. There's always, as soon as something like this happens, this is how it goes. People talk about, like, how we need to start being just as actively profiling white dudes that are getting radicalized and white women, predominantly white dudes, because let's be honest, dudes have a much more higher percentage of being absolutely batshit crazy and violent than women do. There's always a thing like, maybe we should start, like, taking a look at, like, these young white men that are getting radicalized into extreme racist organizations. And then invariably some numbnut starts some hashtag like, hashtag not all white people are racist. You know, do you ever, like, watch, like, a murder mystery movie and it's always the first person to go, I'm not the murderer. They're always the murderer. If you feel obligated to explain how not racist you are to people, you're probably kind of a bit racist. Just saying. A little bit of a guilty conscience. I think Shakespeare said it. Methink thou doth protest too much. Yeah. Don't start hashtags so you can, like, latch on board to the outrage for the sake of it. Just be mad. There's more than enough things in this situation to be vehemently pissed off about. Like how Trump, but, oh, God. The comedy was continuing when he was, like, on a golf course. He's on a golf course talking about how there's racism on all sides. Really, buddy? Really? You know who was fine with calling out Nazis? Everybody! Everybody's fine with it. Why aren't you? Is it because maybe that's your voter base? I wonder. Like, ever since that guy becomes president, all these dipshits start really falling out of the woodwork because they feel empowered and bigoned, as Jebediah Springfield would say. And it really, really pisses me off. He didn't call them out because he knows those are the people that were voting for him. Period. This is the difference between, like, morality and business. When you're talking about moral things, you don't do things that are going to be detrimental to others. When you're talking about business, you just want to win. Donald Trump came in, saw a situation where people were angry, people were afraid. Were they justified about being angry or afraid? Not really. Maybe if they were just reading headlines in a right-wing newspaper, possibly. But he came in, saw that situation. He's like, I can really make these people angrier and afraid and feel like they're actually justified in the way they feel. So he takes a big old tub of gasoline and dumps it on it. And now the flames are going out of control, and he refuses to even acknowledge that he played a role in it. It pisses me off. It disgusts me. I'm not saying Canada's perfect. We have our own social problems, but Jesus Christ, every day I get more and more excited that this is the country I live in. So let's move on, shall we? Let's get that past us. Let's talk about something beautiful, something magical, something by the name of Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart. Let's just gaze on that. That is, look at that album cover. Look at that album cover. That's some hair, bud. First of all, Total Eclipse of the Heart is just an amazingly powerful anthem. It's an incredible song that I absolutely love, and it will always remind me of my mother going to get groceries when I was a kid, and she would friggin' crank that song, and it was awesome. And I love my mom, and she had this amazing, like, button-down shirt that had, like, Egyptian hieroglyphs all over it. So whenever I think of Egyptology, I always think of my mom and her sweet shirt and Bonnie Mother-Lovin' Tyler. Why are we sitting by Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart? Because next Monday, we're going to have the first total eclipse since the 1970s. What's going to happen? We don't know, but there is one young man, and when I say young, I'm kind of stretching the word. He's 40 years old. He posted an ad on Craigslist because he wants a lady to join him in Oregon, which will be the epicenter of the total eclipse, where you're going to see the total eclipse better there than anywhere else in the world. And he wants a lady of strong physical genetic virtues to meet up with him and conceive a child during the apex of the total eclipse, because he believes in an ancient Norse prophecy that this child will be granted great powers and they will potentially be a wizard capable of making the world a better place. Very funny. But what if he's right? Like, what if there is some legitimacy to his theory? Think about it. The moon is our tango partner. Like, the moon is responsible for the tides. It affects people's brains. This is science. This is legitimate science. The moon affects people's brain chemistry. Every year in the fall, human beings go into heat. The month of September is the most violent month of the year around the world. And that is when the moon is the closest to the earth. It's absolutely insane. So what if there is some sort of like connection here? Now, I'm not saying that we can really prove it, because we'll have to really take a look at when people are like getting it on and when conception happens, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many variables here, okay? Maybe the next time total eclipse of the heart. Maybe the next time there's a total eclipse of the moon, we'll have the proper scientific equipment to measure all this stuff. But until then, we don't know. But if you'd like to gamble and potentially have a child that could save the world with magical powers, or maybe just get like a really virulent STI, we've got the actual Craigslist ad has been posted on my blog over at the Edges Facebook page. So you can go there and take a look. Ooh, who's this dapper fellow? This is James Bond. James Bond, Pierce Brosnan, my favorite James Bond. Why? Because GoldenEye is my favorite James Bond movie, period. I would argue that it is the best James Bond movie. It is the most over-the-top, suave James Bond movie there is. I still cannot buy Pierce Brosnan in fistfights when he does fistfights in movies. It's just like he fights a guy who's like 7 feet tall and like 340 pounds of muscle, and he gets the living crap beaten out of him, and then he throws one obviously dainty punch and knocks the guy out cold. I've never bought it. Daniel Craig in his fight scenes, definitely believable. Why are we talking about James Bond? Because Quentin Tarantino is at the center of a rumor that he might be taking over the James Bond franchise and directing a James Bond movie. And people immediately go, oh my God, that's so great. Ah! It's not. It'd be terrible. He would do a terrible James Bond movie. I'm sorry. I absolutely love Inglourious Bastards. I think the way he opened Inglourious Bastards with that like straight up conversation with Christoph Waltz is, going back to Nazis, is one of like the most ballsy opening scenes in cinematic history. It's so good. Most movies start with a bang. That movie starts with just a slow burn. But his movies just keep getting longer and longer and longer and so self-aggrandizing. Like Django Unchained could have been cut in half and it would have been amazing. Hateful Eight, you could have cut 3 hours out of it and you still would have had 2 hours to go. And I love Kurt Russell. I'm a Kurt Russell mark. I'll watch him painting a room. Like he can come, not like Bob Ross painting, like just come in and paint a nursery. I'll watch it. I'll watch the whole thing. I love that guy. And The Hateful Eight was still really, really boring. I would like to see Quentin Tarantino do a movie about ancient Rome, because ancient Rome was like everybody was screwing everybody over. And that's the kind of movie that he's all about. Multi-layered conspiracies that in the end all kind of work together. He's like Guy Ritchie, but he doesn't have a shaky scene where everybody's running. That's like the signature Guy Ritchie scene. But yeah, I would love to see a Quentin Tarantino movie about the Roman Empire. Also, now this is interesting. Do you know anything about the Opium Wars in Hong Kong? It's a really interesting point in history. I really think, and I'm serious when I say that Quentin Tarantino would do a fantastic movie about the Opium Wars. Here's the deal. The British Empire goes to Hong Kong. They start bringing back tea. And the British love tea. And they get it from China. So they start drinking all this tea. And they realize that all of their money is going to Hong Kong for tea. Like Britain is being bled dry for tea. So what can they do? What can they do to get the Chinese to give them their money back? They introduce opium. You see, when the British Empire was conquering like India and all those places, they learned a wonderful little bit of history where the Rajas and the Rajas, the kings or queens or emperors or empresses would take opium and they would get all of their slaves on opium. And then whenever there'd be a massive slave uprising, they would just not give them opium anymore. And it would take a few days till they cracked because they were all drug addicts. And then everything would be quelled. So the British realized they can just get everybody in Hong Kong on opium. And then they can make all their money back. And if they stop paying, well, they'll just stop giving them opium. La-di-da. There you go. Problem solved. And the sad thing is it absolutely worked. And here's the thing. That would make a fantastic movie by Quentin Tarantino, because it's just the right amount of shady and awful for him to do it perfect. Moving on. Forgot to write this guy's name down, but look at this dick. Look at him. Just look at him with his perfect friggin' hair and his sunglasses and his abs and his well-defined deltoid muscles. Hey, what are you doing this summer? Oh, I'm just canoeing. Just gonna canoe across the country, man. Gonna go start in Banff, gonna get in a river, just gonna portage across the country all summer, brah, with no shirt on. Oh, look, isn't he awful? Isn't he just the worst? And he's not the worst because he's the worst. He's probably a great dude. But I hate him so much because it's my dream. Like, he's literally living my dream. This dude started in Banff, and he started portaging all the way across Canada to relive the journeys of one of his ancestors from like 150 years ago. Every woman that's watching is going, oh my God, that's so great. It's so great. He can use a canoe. Oh, God. I would love to do that. That's my dream, is to go across the country and just see things. Because we got an amazing country with all kinds of amazing people and amazing things happening all over the place. I would love to hop in a canoe, go across the country. I actually one time pitched a reality show for me driving across Canada, learning to meet people and going to unique spots on a Honda Jazz scooter, and it was part of a potential Honda Jazz ad campaign that was going to run for an entire summer. I would love to ride a Honda Jazz scooter across, or a Vespa scooter, any kind. If you own a scooter company and you're looking for someone to drive your scooters across the country, I will do it for you because I think it would be amazing. Think about how awesome of a country we have. Wouldn't it be great to be able to go see all of it and maybe raise some great money for a charity of your choice? Children's Wish Foundation, if you're listening, I'll go across the country for you guys, raising money and making wishes happen. That's my wish, Children's Wish. I'm a 38-year-old child, as my wife is so quick to point out all the time. Why don't you make my wish come true? Huh? Moving on. Okay, Android phones have potentially been spying you. Here's the thing. We've all known that like smartphones have the potential to like just start recording or filming you at any point in time. We've all seen the movie Snowden. That's what the whole thing is about. The NSA has the opportunity to spy in on you at any time. Remember in The Dark Knight when they can cue in on the phones and figure all the stuff out? That's real. You know that's real, right? They can legitimately do that stuff right now. And the thing is, it's not just people like the NSA or big-time players. There's a lot of times where you're downloading something like an app or even something shady as a file, probably pornography. Actually, you know what? Pornography is statistically the cleanest thing that you can possibly download on the internet. The irony is strong with that fact. But yeah, people are getting downloaded things, and it's got, wow, really suggestive photograph there. Here's the thing. The reason we've got the guy watching porn is because my fear, this is one of my greatest fears, is that I've like downloaded something by somehow and then I'm like, you know, like jailing to porn on my phone. Because sometimes you don't have a laptop by you and you're just like in the basement because your wife and your kids are asleep upstairs because it's like 1 a.m. You're just trying to like knock one out quick and then just get back to bed. Sometimes that happens. It happens. It's a real life situation that some of us have been in before. So my fear is that I'll be like just taking care of my business on my phone, and someone will start taking pictures of me taking care of my business on the phone, and they'll blackmail me. Let me tell you, there's nothing arousing about me whacking away with a photograph from a phone. This is not a good picture. That's blackmail material. That's one of my fears. Is someone be like, this guy forwarded this photo to my wife, and he's the worst. It's like, no, like, think about it. Like, what's my defense? No! I was just jailing in the basement by myself when my wife and kids were upstairs asleep. That's my only defense. That's all I have. That's all I've got to defend myself. I bet you there's a lot of people out there. I'd be like, there's a lot of people that would come out of the woodroom and I also jail in the basement while my wife and kids are upstairs asleep. It's the only privacy I get. It's all I have left in life. A lot of us out there. There's a lot of jailers. A lot of basement jackers, as I like to call us. Also, what happens if, like, one time I'm sitting around drunk? Because I make a lot of jokes. Remember I was talking earlier about how I, like, pissed off my buddy, my buddy Deal, my producer for my podcast, because I was making jokes about the guys in their tiki torch protest because I didn't realize what had happened? What happens if somebody records me making those jokes out loud because I'm not familiar with everything, and then they release them saying, like, look at this horrible human being. Don't get me wrong, I'm a horrible human being. But it's normally out of, like, I just didn't know. That's normally out of that's another fear of mine, is what I'm saying. What if somebody records me making terrible jokes and then combines it with the video of me, like, J-O-ing in the basement? Look at this guy he's J-O-ing to his terrible jokes alone in the basement. He's the worst man in the world. I've got a $100 McDonald's gift card. If you want to get that, give me a call. 416-870-EDGE.